Everyone, we are back again to talk about the second part of this series on the brain and the nervous system. So I'm going to hit you with a lot of terms, but we'll walk through it together. Today, we're just going to focus on the brain. What are the basic parts of the brain we need to know, we need to understand? So I wanted to kind of revisit the neurotransmitters we covered in our last lecture, because I gave you some neurotransmitters, and then a good question is what happens if something goes wrong with these neurotransmitters? So first one we're talking about is GABA. You remember GABA is inhibitory, so it's supposed to stop something from happening. Abnormal levels of GABA have been implicated in sleep and eating disorders and in convulsive disorders such as epilepsy. So a lot of times when someone has some type of eating disorder, looking at you, anorexia, looking at you, bulimia, we can neurologically find some abnormal level of GABA that's making that happen. So, um, um, and so depending upon the level that's there, the severity of the eating disorder could take place. There's acetylcholine. So deficits account for memory problems for those with Alzheimer's. So a central treatment is focused on how can we increase the level of acetylcholine or maintain the level of acetylcholine in order to promote memory. Dopamine. Loss of cells for dopamine is responsible for Parkinson's. I feel as if I've seen a study where there was some drug that someone used and somehow burned out their dopamine centers to completion to the point that the person developed premature Parkinson's. I forget what that whole thing is. But the linkage is while these are connected to pleasure, they're also connected to muscle movement. And then glutamate. Immune cells overproduce glutamate, which kills the glial cells. Remember, the glial cells are support cells for the neuron. You need glial cells in order for the neurons to function. You have too many of these, boom, it results in multiple sclerosis. All right. These are the images that will, this is the image of the brain. These are the structures within the brain that we will go through. Again, apologies for me not speaking accurate English at the end of the day. It might be time for Dr. Sims to do something he never does, which is use caffeine, but we might be getting to that time. Nevertheless, we're going to keep on going through this journey through the human mind. First structure you need to know, cerebellum. So it's part of the brain that regulates movement, balance, simple skills, reflexes, and cognitive and emotional learning. That is a whole lot just in that small area. That is a whole lot in that small area. So that'll be something you want to know. You think about moving, your ability to keep balance, simple skills that you might have. All that's housed and based in your cerebellum. So, first set of things to know about the brain. The brainstem. It's composed of two different parts, the pons and the medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is oftentimes shortened to medulla. The pons, sleeping, waking, and dreaming. You have a vivid dream the night before, your pons is being very active. The medulla oblongata, responsible for automatic functions such as breathing and heart rate. It's so to give you a sense of the medulla, it's one of the reasons that execution style gun murders are so effective. The bullet enters to the back of your skull and completely eviscerates, devastates the medulla oblongata, destroys it, All your basic life functions cease from that moment. Then the reticular activation system. It's this dense network of neurons at the core of the brain stem, which screens and arouses the cortex. So it screens information. It's how you know right now I'm talking to you. This reticular activation system is how you know what is important and what isn't. You're screening information right now for things that might be relevant to your study of psychology. It's the reticular activating system or reticular activation system is helping you do that. Thalamus relays sensory information with the cerebral cortex. So, are you hot right now? Are you cold? How do you know that? And now that you know that, how do you interpret and use that information? And then the olfactory bulb helps us to smell things. Smell, you know when something smells good, it's gonna be delicious. You smell, you know when that neighbor next to you didn't shower last night. So it helps you to process information through smells. There's the hypothalamus involved in your emotions, and this is important, your drives for survival. So things like fight or flight, running away, getting food. So one of the reasons it is difficult to lose weight by starving yourself because we have a basic drive to eat food. Day number 3, your brain's like, hey, you forgot to eat food. Go get some. And you're like, no, brain, I am going to starve myself to lose weight. And then day 7 hits, and then it becomes unbearable because you're going against a basic drive, which is to eat. Is one of the reasons why it's very unsuccessful to starve yourself in order to lose weight. The pituitary gland, puberty, growth, blood pressure, and reproduction. This little gland is responsible for a lot of the maturity that we see and the regulation in our bodies that we experience. The amygdala, the seat of one's emotions. So the way in which we process emotions and the way in which we regulate those emotions. I tell you some news and you immediately think it's funny, or you think it's sad, or you think it makes you angry. That immediate reaction, you can say, based on your amygdala, how you process the information in an emotional way. So the thought that some, those individuals who struggle with anger issues could be that they have an overactive amygdala that is helping them process information in a way that is not solely correct. The hippocampus helps us to combine sights, sounds, feelings, and experiences to this thing called memory. That memory you have of that thing you did on the beach 4 years ago. The hippocampus helps you to use different parts of the environment to help you experience that. Cerebrum. This is that upper part of the brain, which is divided within 2 hemispheres, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. This does a lot. So sensory, motor, cognitive. So your cerebrum is super important. When we think about who you are, we think of as housed in the cerebrum. Then there's the two halves, so the right and the left half of the hemisphere. You have it's divided in the middle by the corpus callosum. It's hard to see on this imagery here, but the corpus callosum is this very thick bundle of nerves that helps the two hemispheres of the brain communicate with one another. So this bundle of nerves helps information go from the right side to the left side. Now, a funny thing. As it turns out, we know scientifically that women have a thicker corpus callosum than men do. Means that there are more connections, more nerve connections between the right and left hemisphere. It also means that information tends to travel much faster between the two hemispheres. It is one of the reasons why, no matter how much you prep for it, you can almost never win an argument with your girlfriend. Because quite frankly, scientifically, due to this thick corpus callosum, she is a faster thinker than you are. Just leaving you in the dust, no matter how long you prep for that fight. Seems like she has an answer for everything, and in some cases, she actually does, because her brain is scientifically geared for such. Very quick thinkers there. Additionally, this corpus callosum, it allows for such an increased communication between the two halves. It's one of the reasons, on average, that women tend to speak more, have more words for things than men do. There's information going at the speed of light. So we tend to find that women tend to pick up much more vocab quicker as compared to male counterparts. So women, if you are getting into an argument with your male mate, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, and it seems like he's taking forever to respond, he's not ignoring you. He's still trying to catch up to what you just said. All right. So this full part here, the cerebral cortex, right? This is everything. It's everything that we know and experience as a totality of our brain. So we'll go through each of these lobes: this frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. So it's occipital lobe. It's in the back part of the brain, cerebral cortex. And it's the information that you need for visual information. So how you process what I look like right now, that's your occipital lobe doing all the work. Parietal. So at the top of the cerebral cortex, information on pressure, pain, touch, and temperature, as well as awareness of spatial relationships. Right. Temporal, language comprehension, hearing, memory, perception. So see, very much so focused on emotion, language comprehension, being able to interpret outside stimuli into something meaningful. And frontal. So short-term memory, higher order thinking, being able to think through complex difficulties and tasks. Social judgment and speech. I am heavily using my frontal lobe right now to give you this content. So things like the frontal lobes, right? The forward part deals with these complex things we do: reasoning, decision-making, and planning. I'm going to put on the website a short video on the accident of Phineas Gage. Phineas Gage was working on railroad and had some tubes fly through his skull, completely destroying his frontal lobes. Somehow, he lived through this, but it completely changed his personality. So I'll put that on the website for you to see. All right. So there is split brain research, which is the study of patients with severed corpus callosums. These are folks who, for whatever reason, this thick bundle of nerves, this corpus callosum, was cut in half. Oftentimes, this is done to help lower epilepsy, because epilepsy, sometimes electrical signals will spread from one hemisphere to the next. So if I can cut this corpus callosum, that will keep those signals down to one hemisphere. So if you have no corpus callosum, then information can only be sent to one side of the brain. It doesn't get to the other side. This is useful for us as scientists. I can't go through and start cutting up people's corpus callosums to see what their hemispheres do. But if their corpus callosum gets cut due to something ethical, then I can study that. And we know that the right and left side are specialized. They each do certain things. Visual information tends to be processed in the opposite hemisphere. Information you get from your left eye tends to go into the right hemisphere and such and so forth. This is interesting because your visual cortex at the bottom of your right hemisphere and your corpus callosum is connecting both of these together. So through this corpus callosum, even though this information is coming through and going to the right hemisphere, this corpus callosum helps to connect these two parts of the brain together. So I'll put this there. This will be in the book as well, if you happen to get to see this. But essentially, I have an individual look at an image, and if I separate the corpus callosum, I can see, so I have them cover one eye. What image do you see? And I could see and determine that each hemisphere is processing information from the opposite side. So early researchers thought the left hemisphere was more for linguistic and analysis, that the right was more for visual spatial abilities. And we know now that actually they're specialized, but they work together. So that's something to put in your notes. They're specialized, but they work together. And then finally, for this section here, the only thing I want you to know is this word called plasticity. Plasticity. The ability to change and adapt in response to experience. Certain neurons live, certain neurons die. And it's a complete result of experience. So when I talk about brain plasticity, I'm talking about your brain's unique ability to experience the world, and then as a result of that experience, to change the way that the neurons express themselves. What's an example of this? When you're born, you have the ability to learn Korean. And yet, if I never teach you Korean, the neurons that you have to teach you this skill die. Let's say that I teach you Spanish instead. The neurons that you have for learning Spanish increase. So experience shapes the formation of the neurons. It shapes which ones stay, it shapes which ones do not. So the neurons are shaped by your experience. Also, the mind is adaptive. This is a fancy graph to show these green dots are participants who have sight. These purple dots are participants who are blind. Have them do a task, and what do we notice first? Blind participants make a whole lot of mistakes. And yes, we keep doing the task, blind participants make fewer and fewer and fewer mistakes. The brain is so powerful, put this in your notes. Brain is so powerful, it can adapt to blindness. It can still function in the world to keep you safe despite being blind. So the brain is really, really powerful. All right. Got through this section somehow. So please take some time to review. Please review these notes. Please review this lecture. And then if you have questions, we will pick back up next week.